All right. Welcome, everyone, to what I hope to be the first of a series of roundtable discussions about various aspects of herpetoculture, from welfare to husbandry. Today, we'll be talking mostly about enrichment, what it is, why it's important for captive snakes and other reptiles, and how we can implement it. I'm so excited you guys are all here.
Yes, yay!
Excited to be here.
I'd just like to say thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules. I am super honored to have you, and each one of you has so much experience working with snakes and has a unique background and perspective to share. So I'm really excited about this conversation. So let's just start off by going around the table here and do brief introductions of ourselves in case some of the viewers aren't familiar with everyone. Plug your social media or whatever else you want people to know about you. And then, since I think we've all had some kind of connection with each other before, I love it if we could end our own introductions with something nice about someone else, whether they inspired you or why you're happy to be sitting here talking with us. You want to start, Abby?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Abby, the curly hair keeper everywhere and all of the things, except for Facebook. Facebook is just my name, Abby Marie Stone. Facebook is weird. I keep primarily reeds and boas. I have a couple of scrub pythons, and a rhino evolved. So that's fun. I'm not used to working with things that have legs. So that's a new kind of experience. She's really fun though. And yeah, I focus on kind of keeping big snakes in big spaces and really have enjoyed getting to know their different mannerisms and behavior cues more intimately. And really kind of debunking some of the assumptions that I had about them, which is really, really fun. And through social media, we've been able to kind of debunk for other people too, which has been just unreal and super fun. Someone who inspires me, I mean, besides all of you, I'm going to go with Lori because I am part of the behavior group on Facebook, and it's just really, it's a really engaging space, and people ask just, I feel like, Lori, you inspire people to really ask more in-depth questions and pay closer attention about what they're actually looking at and experiencing with the animals in their care. So yeah, thank you for that. It's awesome.
You're welcome.
We just lost Mariah for a second. Hopefully she'll be back, but you want to go ahead, Lori?
Sure. I'm Lori Torrini, and I wear several hats. I run behavior education at Spirit Keeper Animal Sanctuary, and that means that I do my own animal training and behavior business, and I do a lot of studying animal behavior in captive environments so that we can best learn how to optimize their welfare in captive situations where they didn't ask to be. They're not here by their choice. So given that this is the state of the world, they are here in captive environments, what can we do to enhance their well-being as much as we possibly can? And then I'm also a professor of animal health and behavior at Unity Environmental University. So I engage in a lot of teaching. I engage in a lot of behavior studies, not just with snakes, but with other species as well. And then a lot of animal training with horses, dogs, cats, guinea pigs, and snakes. I enjoy research. I enjoy publishing. I'm very inspired by Dr. Susan Friedman. So Abby is thanking me for how in-depth I go into my behavior analyses. That is thanks to Dr. Friedman, who taught me to be very critical about how we measure behavior and how we sort of try to define from an objective perspective what we're actually seeing and how much of what we're seeing can we know is happening and how much are we just speculating because we can't go inside the mind of the actual animal and know what their subjective experience is. The best we can do is try to work out things based on the logic of the behavior that we're seeing.
Got something nice about somebody else here?
Oh my gosh,
No.
all of you guys. Mariah, for one, I want to thank her very much for ReptiFiles, because there are just not that many places that I feel comfortable referring people to when they start asking me about things outside of my wheelhouse. I'm a behaviorist and an animal trainer. But when people start asking me about how should I set up my enclosure, how should I set up my lighting, this and that, all of those parameters, it's not that I don't do those things, but I really feel like that's not the focus of what I do. And if you really want to know what's best, go to somebody whose focus that is, and that is Mariah. And her care sheets and everything are just so in depth, and she puts so much research into them, that I appreciate having that resource to send people to when I don't want to spend time talking to you about how to set up your lighting. Like, there's other people you can ask about that, and I always send them to ReptiFiles.
Yeah. Amy, you want to go?
Yes, I am Amy Benzie from Happy Basins, which you can find me under Happy Basins. Just by a Google search will take you to all the social medias. And I specialize in emerald tree boas, captive and in the wild. And I definitely like what Abby said about debunking, because I feel like these animals, these emerald tree boas, get so much negative stuff said about them being unhandleable and not good pets and unfriendly. And I find that in captivity as well as in the wild, both species are extremely intelligent and curious and manageable, definitely handleable, and definitely good pets. And I just positively love these emerald tree boas, but I also have some other king snakes. I have a ball python now, an iguana who is treated in this house exactly like anybody's dog, and 2 tortoises that sit on my back porch just like dogs waiting for treats. So over the years, since I started with these emerald tree boas, you know how it is when you have reptiles, everybody wants you to rescue one. So it just kind of started as we were going to be foster families for the iguana and the tortoises, 2 king snakes. And it turned out that we are not good foster parents because we absolutely fall deeply in love and nobody's ever left here. And I'll come back to Mariah. I was actually glad I got to go next because Lori took my person who I was going to talk about. And yes, Mariah's ReptiFiles. I actually just learned about ReptiFiles recently when my podcast producer had Mariah on the show. And when she was coming on the show, I did all the research on her. And since I learned about Mariah's ReptiFiles, like Lori, I just send that link out to everybody. You know, people ask me questions about all kinds of reptiles, and I don't know about all kinds of reptiles. And also, like Lori said, it's instead of typing all that stuff or voice text, making all those errors, just send a link to Mariah's ReptiFiles. And Mariah, you have made it so easy to know what's right for these animals. Thank you.
100%. You go, Mariah.
Okay. Amy, you got to stop raving about emerald tree boas. You're going to make me want one. And I do not have a lot of room for snakes. They take up so much space. So yeah, Mariah Healey of reptifiles.com. The website is my primary haunt. So it is a online database of reptile husbandry information. Currently hosting 19 care manuals and over 80 care sheets on snakes, lizards, and turtles and tortoises. It has the most information right now about lizards. There's the most lizards in captivity. That's a big reason. And so it's just kind of demand-based, working on expanding it. I've been stuck in product reviews for a while, but looking to close that down so I can actually get back to what I like, and that's not influencing. But yeah, so it's an online database for reptile care information. I do my best to make sure that it is as science and evidence-based as possible, pulling from as many reputable resources as possible and getting the perspectives from as many successful keepers as possible to get an idea of what thriving in captivity looks like from the lens of naturalistic exotic husbandry, which is my area of specialty. So my area is zoo science, natural history-based exotic animal husbandry with the reptile focus. I am in the middle of a master's degree with West Liberty University in zoo science, which kids have kind of put that a little bit on pause, but it has been very enjoyable so far, and I've learned so much. It's already influenced me incredibly. ReptiFiles, what is present, it's not just a website. I do have social media, mostly Instagram, some YouTube and TikTok. The Instagram is going to be shifting to more of an educational focus, so more factoids, and then I'm going to be moving my personal content to Patreon. So if you want pictures of the collection and my random updates, that my personal life, well, you got to pay to see it.
Nice.
And yeah, ReptiFiles, one shout out would be highly influenced by Melissa Kaplan's anapsid.org. So old website, no longer really being updated for a long time now, but back when I was a kid, anapsid.org was one of my go-to resources on reptile husbandry. And so when ReptiFiles was in its early stages, that was my main inspiration, was creating a place that was easily accessible where people could get clear-cut, straightforward, which is a hard word to use when it comes to reptile husbandry, information about caring for exotic pets. Man, I could say such amazing things about each of you, except for you, Abby, and that's because I don't know you very well. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better here. And then I'll have lots of good things to say, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, Lori, you're a celebrity in my eyes. I'm referring people to you probably just as often as you're referring people to me. I'm always just like, hey, if you want to know how to have a better relationship with your snake, how to, how to handle a snake, training, want to know about reptile intelligence, just go to Lori. She's the one who's done all of the research and is really just a pioneer in this field and just busting myth after myth about these animals. And it's been so thrilling to see that, what you feel in your gut about these animals is actually right. That they are smart, that they can be trained, that they can be, dare I say, companion animals in a sense.
Say it louder. Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, I am a big fan of you guys and the work that all of you do.
Thank you. I will tell you, Mariah, that I'm teaching a course this term on designing captive animal environments. And one of my students chose her course project to do about a leopard gecko. And she's designing this really super elaborate leopard gecko habitat, but she is citing ReptiFiles in a lot of her work.
That's awesome.
Great. I better make sure that thing's up to date.
That's a never-ending process, I believe.
Yeah, people ask me, why don't you publish books? And I'm like, because information is changing basically yearly and I can't commit.
Yeah.
I'm too scared of, committing and then something changes and kicking myself. So keeping things online based makes updating so much simpler. That's a woman with about 8 hours or less per week to take care of the site.
Wow. Well, I'll go last. I'm Shira, the human behind the Snake Therapy channel. And my content, as well as the work I do in person, focuses on the mental and emotional health benefits of interacting with snakes, how that can be mutually beneficial by inspiring us to constantly improve our care for the animals. And as an artist, I like to bring creativity into the experience by inspiring and sharing my DIY habitats that I build. And as far as something else nice to say, I'm going to cheat because I can't say just one thing about one person. Everybody here has inspired or taught me something. So Lori, of course, I have learned so much more about being more conscientious of my snake's experience when we have interactions, which has been huge. It has definitely influenced my interactions with my animals, how I observe them. It's been so important. And so I'm so grateful for that. Amy, you have absolutely blown my mind with your trips to the Amazon. You're brave and bold, and I love it. And the way you have your jungle set up for your Amazon tribos, it's just amazing. Abby, your content is such a beautiful illustration of how we can have these meaningful relationships with these animals, and like it's such an incredible way of showing the world, whether they're keepers or not, that these are not these monsters that everybody thinks they are. And of course, Mariah, like everyone else says, I can't count how many times I've either referenced or shared your care guides. I even spent tons of money printing them out for my booth at a reptile show where I wasn't selling animals, but half of my booth was a display of care guides from ReptiFiles, because nobody seems to have care guides at shows. So I was like, well, the only ones that I feel comfortable having are from Mariah, and they flew off the shelf. I gave a ton of them out. It was great. So all of you are people who share really valuable education about snakes to both keepers and the general public alike. And I'm so, so happy to have you all here today.
Yay, I'm so proud to be here with this wonderful crew.
Yeah. All right. So first talking point, let's just talk about what is enrichment, why is it important, and how do we offer it? And we can all go around and just share something about that. And I'm just going to go in order of who's on the screen. So Abby, if you want to start with what it means to you. And
yeah, I think one of my primary focuses is giving the animals a chance to exhibit their natural behaviors. So to me, that looks like climbing space, like exploring things that are unfamiliar to them and allowing them to kind of think a little bit more. As often as can, I keep retics. Like I said, I feel like their brains are just always those wheels are turning. You can see it. So it is not a selfless thing. I get so much joy from seeing them just relax and be happy and explore and engage in the way that they do with their environment and with me. They just blow my mind every single day. So that's kind of my approach to how I define enrichment.
I definitely define enrichment as giving them an opportunity to exhibit their wild behaviors, and getting the opportunity to spend so much time with these animals in the wild. I've gotten to really design my room, my jungle room. The whole room is basically, not basically, but the entire room is an enclosure, so that they do exhibit their wild behaviors. And inside of their closed up enclosures, within the big enclosure, they have full vine systems and all the things they have in the wild. And as much time and funds as we put into their living situation, it's so worth it to us, because we get, like you said, so much joy out of watching them enjoy themselves. And when they get to exercise their curiosity, and we see their eyes moving to different things and they're checking out the new things that they get, it gives us so much pleasure. And yes, enrichment is giving them things to be curious about and opportunities to exhibit their natural behavior, for sure.
Mariah, you want to go?
Yeah. Thanks, Betsy. So to summarize it, enrichment to me is variety, novelty, and or inconvenience. And so that's my checklist that I go through when I am thinking about, how I want to enrich my reptiles environment. Does it fit into one or more of these boxes? Inconvenience is honestly one of my favorites. It's just so funny. How can I make my animals' life harder? But it makes them smarter and it keeps them busy. So it ultimately is a win, and they seem to enjoy it too. I actually got I can't remember the Etsy seller, the one who does 3D printed toys for snakes. What's his name?
Exotic enrichment.
Exotic Enrichment. Yeah, I just got the rings for
cool.
my boa, and it's been pretty funny watching him try to figure it out. But he's been very excited, so I'm glad I got it. It's good to have. I'm glad that I have him in an enclosure big enough to actually accommodate. And I'm all about height. I'm all about ultimately, to me, enrichment, it can be used to make up for a substandard enclosure while you're working your way up. So if you don't have the space or the resources to have a large enough enclosure per current minimum, then enrichment is kind of how you can make up for it a little bit. Okay, you might be living in a New York studio apartment that's, all of 300 square feet, but if you have enough to do in there, then it's okay. And if you have opportunities to get out of there, then it can be okay.
Right.
But ideally, there is a happy balance between space and enrichment activities, opportunities to get out and do different things. So enrichment cannot fully compensate or make up for inadequate husbandry, but it can help a lot. And ideally, as you move forward, the two start to come into more of a balance where there is there is enrichment inside the enclosure and there is enrichment outside of the enclosure as well, to create as much variety and as stimulating of a life as possible for the animal. Because ultimately, it's funny to say it this way, but they're people too. And if you can think about them that way and just assume that, if I wouldn't be happy in that situation, then they probably aren't either. I'd rather be wrong in assuming that animals care about their environment and have just as many complex needs as humans do, with a couple of noteworthy exceptions, but that's a tangent. Like the need for a girlfriend, for example. Then I'd rather be found wrong for assuming too much than assuming too little.
I love that.
Me too.
That's a great way of talking about it. Lori, you want to go?
Yes. So, Mariah mentioned making things harder for them and incorporating challenges into the enrichment experiences. And I was hoping she'd say that that's very much from the zoo world and from zoo science. So the AZA and other zoo organizations are going to have their own way to define enrichment. And typically it's adding novelty to the enclosure or adding a novel experience that the animal can participate in above and beyond what is their normal environmental complexity. So when something becomes not new anymore, it's no longer considered enrichment, and now you have to up your game and you have to do something else. So a way to keep that going is through challenging activities, through things that build resilience and problem solving, and that are challenging for the animal and causing some stress to the animal. But if they're achievable challenges, that actually is good stress and it builds resilience. And it gets the animal's cognitive abilities engaged. And so enrichment can be an object that you give to the animal to interact with, or it could be an experience that you provide for the animal. But it's really enrichment, with the MENT on the end, is really something that's new and above and beyond what they experience in their everyday life. So they can live enriching lives. I'd like to think all of our animals live very enriching lives, but for something to be considered enrichment, say in the zoo world, and also the animal shelter world has their own definition for enrichment for shelter animals, but it's typically something that's above and beyond what they're experiencing every day. So you could have like tons of environmental complexity, like Amy has for her tree pythons. Like they live in great environmental complexity on a daily basis. So what are you going to add to your forest in your house to make them have a new and exciting experience one day that boosts their level of emotions and makes them a little bit stressed and feel challenged, and sort of ignite that seeking sense that they want to go seek this out. They want to try to accomplish this challenge. They want to investigate this thing because it's not here every day. What's this new thing in my forest? So that's how I consider enrichment. And it can get challenging to do when you have snakes or other animals that are used to a ton of environmental complexity. And that's where I think an object just isn't going to do it, where you've got to start getting creative with the experiences that you set up for them to engage in.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that I want to think more about, because I work really hard to create enriched environments that are as complex as I can make them, as large as I can make them. None of my enclosures even feel big enough, and they're way beyond the minimum for what the minimum is supposed to be for the animals and their age and size. So, figuring out how to continue to challenge them and give them enrichment beyond that is something that I'm trying to figure out how to do more of. And before we get on to how we do that, can you talk a little bit about why is it important? Just a quick introduction here to remind you that if you're enjoying this content, please take a moment to support it by hitting that like button and visiting the Snake Therapy Patreon, where you can get early access to episodes, extra content, and some special perks. You can also support the channel by using the affiliate links in the description below to buy substrate from ReptiChip or enclosures from Apex Reptile. Also, the Reptile Roundtable discussions will become a series, so make sure to leave a comment below if you have an idea for a topic and/or a guest you'd like to see contribute to the conversation. Future events will also be live streams with Q&A, so make sure you're subscribed so you get notified about those and don't miss the chance to join in. And if you want to learn more about the guests from today's episode, check the description of the video, where I've included a bio and links to where you can find them.
So animals evolved to behave. And if they didn't have the ability to behave in relation to environmental stimuli, they would not survive as a species. So even the most sedentary organism that you could think of, like there are some ocean marine animals that sit in one place and are sort of filter feeders. They're not mobile, and they sort of filter feed and they don't move around a lot, but they still behave. Within their world, from their perspective, they are still engaging with their environment. They're still behaving. They are acting upon their environment in order to acquire resources. And so if animals didn't evolve to do that, they would just die off. So snakes have been around, 100 million years? About 99 million years or so. There is no way that if they couldn't problem solve and think and overcome challenges and wayfind and acquire resources, food, water, shelter, adapt to environmental changes, geologic changes, there's no way that they would still be around. And so when we put them in a captive habitat, we take away all of those challenges, but they still have the biological initiative to engage in problem solving and in wayfinding and in mate seeking and in resource seeking, and just to express their agency and control over their environment, because they have an innate biological imperative to do these things. They've had to survive. So we've taken away the need for them to do some of these things because we're giving them food, we're giving them water, we're giving them a warm place, we're making sure it doesn't get too hot. We shelter them from predators. So, okay, they're safe and they have resources, but their brain and their biology is still going to give them innate urges to want to roam, to want to seek, to want to engage in activities that involve environmental stimuli. And when they don't have opportunities to do that, that energy that they would normally be using on those things is going to be used up on something else, because they have to get rid of that energy. So that's when you start seeing stereotypic maladaptive behaviors, like pushing, like glass surfing, like edging, self-mutilation. You may start to see an increase in aggressive behavior or defensive behavior, or you might see the opposite, where they become shut down and apathetic and maybe even stop eating, because they have an inability to exert control over their environment and satisfy these innate biological needs, these urges that they're feeling. And so by us providing them with an enriched habitat to live in, and by us incorporating challenges into their experiences and novelty and enrichment into their normal daily lives, we are giving them an outlet for these biological imperatives that they have anyway. Those don't go away because now we have them in a box.
Yeah. That's something that I think about so often when people are like, oh, this guy's spicy, this guy's bitey all the time, this guy's, I don't know, this one's crazy. And it's like, the first thing that comes to my mind is, how are you keeping it? What do you do? What is its life like? And more often than not, it's not enriched at all. And I mean, yeah, you can call it anthropomorphism, but they're bored. Like, I mean, you can just equate these things. They need to use their brains just like we do, right?
Mm-hmm. They do. And also, if you want to do more with your reptiles, if you want to do more with your snakes, I do a lot of training with them, and I find that very helpful for husbandry tasks, but also I just like animal training. They're going to be better suited to learn new behaviors if they have an enriched environment and they're problem solving on their own first, because then they get more on board with problem solving during training.
Right. I mean, their brains literally get bigger if they're enriched. We have that scientifically proven now, right? We have that study that just came out, and it's like, well, we knew that, but thanks for putting it on paper. But yeah, why is it important to you, Mariah? If there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, Lori, I think covered like all of it. I feel like I have what to add. One thing, I guess,
it's okay. She pretty much summed it up, but yeah.
To like people who've never put a snake in an enriched environment before, who've never felt the need, who have been indoctrinated one way or another that snakes are extremely simple, or just reptiles in general, really, that all they need is a place to hide and some water and feeding regularly. That doing that is providing them the ideal life because they have everything they could ever want. So, they're going to do the reptile equivalent of sitting on the couch watching TV all day, except not even watching TV, like watching a wall.
Yeah.
I have wondered about using TV as a form of reptile enrichment, for the record.
Sometimes they watch.
Some seem to like it.
Sometimes they do.
But, or like putting on a podcast or something in the room. But, like at bare minimum, my argument is stress resilience. So when you have an animal that has been kept in an extremely understimulated environment its entire life, and then you change something, you take it to the vet, you have to change your rodent supplier. And so now the food smells different or looks different. Just a tiny change, really. But for an animal that has never really experienced novelty, all of a sudden that's the end of the world. It's sets off everything in their brain that says something's wrong, you're gonna die. And you see this a lot with reptiles that have been raised in a very minimalist rack type setup where everything's the same every single day, and they just don't experience anything really to engage their senses, engage their mind. And so you frequently see in reptiles, people will come to me and they'll say, I can't even, like, if I don't set up my enclosure the exact same way that it was before after cleaning it, my reptile will stop eating for like 2 weeks. And I won't see it because it's just hiding the whole time. And so I try not to change anything at all because it's obviously freaked out and doesn't tolerate change very well. And I say, then you need to help it overcome. It's essentially anxiety. You're making your reptile into a basket case. And so if you can just change, get one little thing at a time, get them accustomed to change, get them accustomed to coming out of the enclosure, being put in a box to go to the vet, just very practical things. Then you're going to have an animal that is going to have a higher quality of life simply because it's not living in constant fear of the shadow on the wall, because its brain is just not equipped to deal with it. So it's incredibly practical to offer even low-level enrichment just for a mentally healthier animal. And you don't want a snake that's this ill-bred trembling chihuahua all the time, right?
Right.
And then, you know, you can start having fun with it if you want to. That's what I tell people is, you know, as you see, you know, them get more comfortable with change, then you can start doing fun things with them. And that's the other part of the equation, right? Is you get to have fun with your reptile. Why do we like reptiles? It's because we like looking at them. We like handling them. It's not like, oh yeah, I just like having, I like the idea of having something in a drawer. Really? No. We, as kids, we fall in love with reptiles because we, you know, we're at the pet store with our parents, or, you know, we're out on a hike, or, you know, even just watching a documentary, and we see them behaving. We see them being themselves, and we find that so fascinating. And that's why we want them as pets. Is, you know, why we want a reptile rather than a dog or a cat or a bird or a horse, is we like them for what they are. And they cannot be what they are without enrichment.
Yeah.
Without encouraging them to exercise the very behaviors that make them them.
Well said. Amy? Oh, you're muted. We lost you. We lost your vocals.
I think she's saying go to Abby.
Okay, we'll go to Abby and you work on that.
Because everything's reversed, I thought she was pointing the other direction, so I was like, just point it. Yeah, I guess the one word that I would use is, which Mariah and Lori already touched on, is resiliency. Right? Like that enrichment, as Mariah, as you were talking and explaining kind of that, if you have an animal that's kept in a very isolated, like no enrichment environment, they're going to freak out with anything new. And as you were explaining that, I'm literally watching Aries attempt to climb something he's never climbed before in the room. And I can see him. He's like, why isn't this working? And I'm like, he'll get there eventually. But instead of just running and hiding, they have that resiliency. They have that confidence to be like, no, I'm going to figure this out. It's like just observing that, not helping them, nothing, just observing that behavior and that engagement with the enrichment to help them continue building that resiliency. I saw the same thing when I did maternal incubation with some of my girls. Like, it's just fascinating. It's amazing. And once you see it, it's like, I can't imagine not doing this for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It turns out that Zaltis had turned my microphone off.
Yes, that's awesome.
Oh, either one would have worked. That would have worked.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Reverting back to Abby, was that one of the things she mentioned in all of her reasons was because it makes us feel good. And I'll tell you that providing opportunities for these animals to interact with the environment and with us gives us so much satisfaction. So we, do it for the animals, but the reward is great for us. And as far as watching animals struggle, I'll tell you that I have two sulcata tortoises we've had for going on 2 years now. And those things love to try out new stuff. They will continuously climb. If they jump off something and they roll over on their back, I'll leave them like that until it seems, too much, and I'll help them. But I try to let them do it themselves, but they will get up and turn around and go right back up there and keep jumping off until they get it right. And then we'll see them day after day doing that same thing. So they especially show us how much they love struggle. And we love to watch those tortoises because they'll even start going up their steps, the big one especially, and turn around and go struggle to try to climb up a spot that she can't climb. And today she did it. She climbed up that this morning. And I even got a video of it on Facebook. She's just amazing how she just kept trying and trying. And now she just pulled herself right up there as though she's been doing it forever. So the struggling is really great to see in animals like the tortoises and the iguana because they're more expressive and they do stuff every day, and with the snakes, you don't always see that behavior happening right away. Sometimes it's instant and sometimes it takes days or weeks or even months. We have a king snake upstairs who didn't come out of his hide for 4 months since we've had him. And now you can't even walk from one side of the living room to the other and he's following us around. And one more thing, somebody mentioned, I can't remember if it was Lori or Mariah, but enriching the animals, even though I have all of this jungle in here. I have another video on Facebook because I do all night long time lapses, when the animals are out and about. And there was one particular video I really, really loved. And now I do these types of things regularly is when they're out and about. I came in, I had 5 snakes out, which is a whole nother form of enrichment, is letting them interact with each other. Even when the males are haughty towards each other, it is still, I can tell that it's a great activity as long as they're supervised under that particular situation. But what I was going to say is I came in here, I had 5 snakes out. I came in and attached a vine to my ceiling vines into the enclosure of one of the animals who hadn't come out. And I left the room. As soon as I turned the light off, all 5 of those snakes in this room, all 5 of them came over to see what I did to that vine that I put into the 6th enclosure. So yes, they love new stuff. And I just love the idea of, even if you can't let your snakes out, even if you don't have a whole jungle room filled with ceiling vines for all of your things to explore, just putting a little something to smell different into a drawer or, whatever kind of small enclosure we might have can get that brain going. And they definitely, I don't need a research paper because I have enough experiences right here in this room and in the jungle to see that these animals think, they calculate. Some species calculate much more obviously than other species, just like we see with different breeds of dogs. And I'm sure Lori knows with all kinds of animals.
And
So
individuals too, right? Individual animals, not just, the same
groups,
animal.
right?
Yeah, the same two animals of the same species can respond completely differently to the same things. And I think that's a really important thing to talk about, in that we need to also be patient with them and some will just come right out and check out what the thing is that you got, and some may take some time, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you shouldn't continue offering, right?
That's
because And again, and also being aware that if you have nocturnal snakes that are shy on top of being nocturnal, to understand that just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. And if you can, and get a cheap camera or something and leave it and let it go for weeks and see what happens. Give it time, because most likely they are exploring those things. And if they don't, then try something else. Don't just assume that they don't need anything,
Amy had this really great example of that vine, and think back to how that is evolutionarily adaptive. So snakes learn their environments. They know where's safe, what's dangerous, where resources are. But now something's new, and now they don't know what that new thing is. So in order for them to enhance their survival, they have to know, is that dangerous? Is it something that's going to hurt me? Is it something that's going to benefit me? Is it something that I don't need to worry about? And then you started to allude to the temperament spectrum of, the big 5 personality traits, which are highly influenced by innate biological temperament, which means many organisms are born on the shy end of that spectrum, and some are born on the very bold end, and a lot are in between. So your shy snake is going to be the one that's going to take longer to investigate that new thing in their habitat, because they're going to lean towards, it's probably something that's going to hurt me. And your higher risk takers that are hatched with a bolder temperament are going to be the ones that have to go investigate it right away, because, hey, maybe this is something that's going to benefit me, or maybe it's something that I need to defend my territory against. But we can all trace all of these things back to certain biological mechanisms. And I think it's really important for everybody to understand that, because when you take away all of those possibilities in a captive setting, you are not helping your animal fulfill their biological imperatives.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And how we do these things. I mean, I think I might be the only person in this group that can't free roam. I don't know. I think everybody can just open their enclosures. No, Mariah, you're also...
I mean, unfinished basement has many hazards, so it's very tightly supervised free roaming, if any. The snakes kind of, the lizards not at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Abby too, with her drop ceiling.
Right. And Abby can't walk away, but you do have them out quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just like roaming around. And for me, and I'm sure many other people who are watching, I can't do that, or we've talked a little bit about putting enrichment in enclosures, which can be textures, smells, just new items, even moving things around that are the same, just moving them around. But what about outside? And some ways to do that supervised, and then maybe, I could talk about the in between free roaming and not free roaming that I've kind of figured out how to do.
I haven't done this in years. I don't know why I stopped doing it. Probably because I let so many free roam. But with my colubrids a lot, because I do not let them free roam. I used to set up a big table, like a 6 foot, by 24 inch or 36 inch portable table. And I would throw like 50 cardboard boxes on it, and I would hide prey in them. And I would sit nearby and watch them forage on that table and go in and out of the boxes, and have to flip the flaps on some of the boxes to get to the prey. So obviously that's something that involves your presence, because you've got to supervise it, but you don't have to, like, I would be working on something else while they're engaged in it. It isn't like you have to watch them every second. And then I just, for those snakes, use a lot of exercise tents and bigger self-contained spaces that I can put them in with activities to do. And I don't have to watch them 24/7. Where that can be an issue, and Mariah might be able to talk more about how to overcome this, is depending on what your local climate is and what the environment in your home is. How long can you leave them in an open air exercise tent? Or how long can you leave them out on a card table? You know, how long can they engage in that before they need to go back to their climate controlled space? Because I keep a lot of species where I don't need to worry about that. But many people have species with very specific environmental parameters, and you couldn't, for example, put them in an exercise tent and leave them for 2 days or maybe even 2 hours.
Right. I think a few hours is probably fine for most species, but you do need to understand, like, I got one of those big tents. It's bigger than most of my enclosures, and it has multiple levels, and it has like little hidey holes, and I added a bunch of stuff, and I just wanted something that was bigger than their enclosures that they could explore, where I didn't have to hover.
Right.
Because as much as I love, taking the snakes out and letting them explore stuff, I'm constantly like, don't go there, or, oh God, the dog's coming. Like, I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to give them the freedom to just check it out, go figure it out. And putting a lot of things in the way and stuff like that. So I got this tent, and I have it outside. I can bring it inside. This morning, it was in the 70s, getting a little warmer, but I used it as a place to put my rat snake while I cleaned out her enclosure. She loves it. They all love it. Every single snake loves it. It's awesome. They're so relaxed when they come back in to find them. They've gone everywhere. They explore everywhere. And the coolest thing is that they have been more relaxed coming out as well, which has been very interesting, because she is one of my most like skittish snakes. And this was like one of her, she was so relaxed after time. But the point being is that I left her in there for about an hour and a half, and I checked the temperature, and I was like, it's starting to get up there. It's starting to get to the 80s. So it's time to take her out. And it is really important to think about that. There are things you can do, like sandwiching a heat mat in between two tiles and having it on a thermostat, and just tucking that in somewhere in that like closed environment, so they can go have a warm up if it's cold, but that is definitely important to think about the temperature and stuff like that.
Yeah, back when I lived in my apartment, free roaming was a lot easier, because where would they go, really? Snakes had to be more supervised, because there was one incident with the Doomeral's boa getting inside the couch and having to cut him out. That was fun. So lesson learned there. But I did use a heat mat for my blue-tongue skinks. This is an up to 24-inch lizard, so I got a big old tortoise heat mat. And whenever the skinks were out, I would just put out that heat mat, and so you could see them, doodle around, doodle all over the living room. Then go back to the heat mat, warm up a little bit, keep going, doodle, and that kind of helped keep them going for longer. But usually, when it comes to getting them out and figuring out if the temperature is comfortable for them, I'll use their behavior as my guide. So, for as long as they're going and exploring and doing things, then I'm like, okay, you're happy, you're good. But as soon as they start really slowing down, looking for a place to hide and sleep, that's usually when I'm like, you're probably ready to go back inside and recharge. This isn't fun for you anymore. This might be uncomfortable at this point, because I have removed from you the option of recharging. So having a charge station of some kind is something that I see a lot of people do, whether it's a heat mat out or a heat lamp, depending on the animal that's out and about. I say charge station, but really, like, let's be real, reptiles are solar powered. They charge and they go. They charge and they go. Their battery life can be rather lousy sometimes, but it's how they go. The nice thing I think with a lot of snakes is they're pretty resilient to room temperature. And so they can usually go and go and go off of very little, just because they're built to be super, super efficient. It does vary on the species, the ones that prefer a higher temperature environment. Again, you're not going to see this a ton with snakes. They usually like to be on the cooler end of things, but taking that into consideration to figure out what's going to be comfortable and what's going to be uncomfortable and how long they're going to be cool. Because even with like humidity, usually, you know, a few hours out and about in household humidity is really not going to do damage. That's something that occurs over the course of days, weeks.
Right. But on the opposite spectrum, like there are some that it could be too hot outside. And for example, that tent, you know, I really enjoy, I feel like a good enrichment for several of my snakes, not all of them, but some of them, is to just take them out into the sun. And so what I've done with that tent is I've covered most of it and I have an awning. So I'll put like a corner out into the sun, a corner of it, and just have a little sunshine in there. So there is a temperature gradient in there. And there's plenty of places for them to get away from that sun. However, I live in LA and it gets hot. And even a snake from a tropical place, it could be too hot. So you do have to also think about that. But that sunshine,
danger.
Yeah, but
that's what a lot of people don't think about. I think is that, and let's something to consider if you're taking a reptile outside is chances are, even if your lighting is really good, if it hasn't been exposed to the sun before, it's probably gonna freeze. Because the way the sun looks and sunlight, you have to remember that a lot of reptiles are tetrachromats. They can see UVA as an additional color in their, it affects their entire rainbow. Their entire perception of color shifts because of this additional ingredient in their vision. And so you see this in, it's harder for a snake to really flip out in a way that's unmanageable for a human, unless you're dealing with larger species. But you do see this often in lizards where, you know, you take your bearded dragon, your tegu outside, and all of a sudden they're off like a shot, like they're terrified. And I mean, you don't have to be an expert in reptiles to see it.
Did you see Clint's recent video about the sad video about Gus Gus that he made? Gus Gus, his tegu passed away. Unfortunately, yeah, it's very sad. But it's a very, very sad video. You will cry if you watch it, I promise you. But it's also incredible because he illustrates this exact thing, and he illustrated it by he told stories about his tegu and taking them outside. And this tegu had been a puppy dog, you know, never a problem. And the first time he took it outside, it lost its mind. And he turned the screen into UV, like he went blue. And he was like, this is what I look like to the tegu. And it was really cool to see, to like have that illustrated and be like, he's like, don't I look like a crazy monster? He couldn't even recognize me because as soon as we went inside, he was like, oh, hey, where have you been? There was this crazy monster out there. It was incredible. It was fantastic.
Fun fact. I heard that story from Clint around the time that it happened.
Really?
Because Clint and I go way back. Before there was Clint's Reptiles, we attended the same church. We were in the same congregation. And he brought reptiles to entertain the kids with. And me and my husband were like, we're not kids, but can we see the reptiles too? And we were all newlyweds. And so Clint was very influential in getting me back into reptiles and saying, you know, like, this is something you can do with your life now. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an adult. I have my own place. My mom can't tell me no. So there's, without Clint, there would be no ReptiFiles for sure. But yeah, nice. When I say, you know, some animals will really flip out, my first thought was Gus Gus. Because that was my first, the first story I heard.
Sometimes it can be
not doing well.
Sometimes it can be, also, you know, when you take them outside, it can be a stress response to wide, like, you know, bird might be overhead or something like that. And it's just so different. It could be a combination of the things of their vision has just changed. And so it's really important that when you do that, you observe how your animals respond. I do have several snakes that absolutely, their entire body language changes when I take them outside. As soon as the sunlight hits them, they just relax, and I can feel it. I can feel it. I can see them, and they're not freaked out. And I do have another snake that gets freaked out. And so I rarely take them out into the sun.
It helps. And again, I'd be interested to know the difference between the vision capabilities in those species, because not all snakes can see UVA, if I remember correctly. So knowing exactly what they're seeing can help with that. But there's also, when you spend a lot of time in a really heavily air-conditioned environment, like your freezing office building, or, you've been in a store where, the HVAC is just going crazy during the middle of the summer, and you've got the goosebumps, you're dressed for outside, not inside, and then you step outside. You leave the building, and immediately you feel those warm tingles. And it's not... a lot of people say, oh, I can feel myself getting a sunburn. No, you can't feel yourself getting a sunburn because the damage is not instantaneous. That inflammation takes time to set in. What you're feeling is the infrared A penetrating your tissues to, sorry, I don't have better word choice at the moment. But it's your body is literally soaking that warmth from the sunlight in, and it is intensely pleasurable in that moment. If you like heat, there are random oddballs who don't, but you step out into the sun after being cold and it feels good. And that's often what the reptiles feel. They feel a difference between artificial heating and real warmth, the way that their bodies evolved to process it. Warmth that, they don't have to sit on a heat mat or even, under a heat lamp for ages to absorb. They're getting it instantly. Yeah. It's delivered to every cell in their body, basically. And it's kind of crazy. An amazing experience for them.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to realize that even if you're doing basking lamps and UVB and LEDs and all the technology that we have available to try and replicate the sun, it's still not the same thing. It does not come close, and you can see that as soon as you take them outside. Abby, do you take your big snakes outside?
Yeah,
in the summer. Yeah,
yeah. They'll actually, Aries will try and climb up the back door. They know where outside is.
Oh,
cool. So he'll literally look at the door, and I just open it, and he goes out. Stella does the same thing. So they, luckily, they haven't. That door locks, so they can't let themselves out. So I have a feeling they'll figure that out. But no, they do really well. They'll usually go roam around for a bit. Stella will turn around and put herself back, come back inside, back to her enclosure when she's done, when she's had enough. Aries, I have yet to find his enough limit. He just goes forever and ever. But yeah, they love being outside. They absolutely love it.
I recently came across a great idea from Philip Leitz, big arid species, mostly entirely lizards, some tortoises, of transforming a basement window well into a shaded outdoor environment for reptiles. It doesn't work so hot for snakes because usually there's enough texture in a window well to potentially escape, depending on how good of a climber. Like you said, Lori, colubrids aren't trustworthy. But it is a good way to introduce the outside because it's indirectly lit. You rarely get direct sunlight in a window well. So it's going to be cooler, much more stable environment there. And it's kind of a good way to just test out the outside in a way that, if you have a basement and if you have a window well, that's a closed environment that you immediately have access to, and then you can start kitting it out, and that's fun. Or, honestly, if you have snakes and you want to put your snake in a window well, there are window well covers. Just don't get one of the plastic ones that makes it a greenhouse.
Yeah, just make sure it does not get cooking in there.
Yeah, but that's one idea. No one's bringing this up, so I'm going to bring it up. What we're doing right now, handling our reptiles, is a really great form of enrichment, as long as they are up for it. Like, forced handling is not enrichment, that's torture. But once you've gotten to them to the point where they are comfortable with handling and letting you be a toy for them, essentially, then that's highly enriching, and that's very controlled. When they're, you know, when you're holding them, when they're on your body, you know where they are at all times, and they are getting a lot out of simply being with you, because, you know, based on what you're wearing from day-to-day changes, you might be wearing a different fabric. You're gonna smell different. So there's, you know, based on what you ate, based on what, you know, whether the last time you showered, what hair products you've got in, all of these things is a really stimulating sensory experience for them. Just you are a major enrichment tool all by yourself, as well as long as you are respecting the animal's limits and boundaries. You cannot be grabbing them. You have to let them take the lead on it. Just be the tree. And Lori can really go into it further.
Well, I just want to emphasize, like TC, who was out with me earlier, he's decided he wants to sit right here. He came out on his own today. I mean, I just opened his enclosure and he came out, and he'll crawl out onto me sometimes. And then once I had him, I let him go when he chose to leave me. And so, you know, that's a choice-based experience. And I'm glad that Mariah mentioned, as long as you're not forcing handling. But I actually think Abby's the perfect person to talk about this, because I see her do a phenomenal job, just amazing interactions with her snakes and allowing them the choice to interact with her or not.
Yeah, it's made a huge difference for, like, the retics. The retics are easy because they're very, very, they tend to be more on that social end of that spectrum. Same with my boa. She's very, when she's not in shed, she's very like at the glass. I open the door, she'll come out on her own. My scrub python Cogs, not the one, not Cogs. I love that everyone cracks up when I say Cogs. Cogs is Mr.
He's so cutely judgmental, though.
He has a personality. He's a cranky old man, and he hatched that way. So he doesn't like to be handled. So I don't handle him. But what I do is we have what I have dubbed the retic tree that my husband made for me, which is just a tree that died on our property, a hardwood tree, let it dry out, and we'll put it on a stand. So it has all the branches and stuff. So we use it really hard. It's so fun. Hit up a greenhouse and ask them, hey, if you ever have a hardwood tree die, can I come get it? I want to use it.
Noted. Okay. Yeah, I'm so going to do that.
If you need help with the stand, hit me up, because it's so simple. It's so easy. But yeah, I use that to, like, all of the snakes will climb on it. From like my 9-foot mama, April, will climb up that tree and nap on it, which I think is adorable. But I'll also use it to like park the babies as I clean, and they'll explore and sniff on it. So that tree not only is climbing enrichment, but it also has lots of different smells. So it smells like lots of different animals.
Yeah.
So Cogs, being the judgmental fellow that he is, if he's at his glass, I'll open it and just park the tree outside of his enclosure, and I'll just walk away to a point where he can't see me, but I can still kind of keep an eye on him to make sure he's not up to shenanigans. But almost every time it works, he'll come out on the tree and just be so distracted sniffing it, I can just kind of scooch the tree away from his enclosure, do the things. He relaxes once he's out. And that's kind of our way of interacting with each other. It's on his terms, right? He is smart. They are uncannily intelligent. So he has figured out if he's really frustrated with me, if I'm trying to like push the interaction too hard, like hold him when he's not, he knows he can anchor onto my wrist and like turn around and get me. Like, dude, Like, so we absolutely go on his terms because it's stressful for him if we try and, you know, do something that he's uncomfortable with.
Right.
So, but yeah.
This is like a mini version,
Yeah.
basically, of that. Like I've been sizing these up. This is an old one.
Yeah.
But it's still good enough for even him. He's 2 now. But yeah, you can all those, you know, go to an expo and get a big old branch and make a stand out of it, or a cat tree.
And
Yeah.
Abby,
Yeah, cat trees.
I see you do this a lot, and I do it too with certain snakes, like TC, where you put your hand up to the enclosure or offer your hand to the snake outside. Talk a little bit about that, because I think what that illustrates and is important for keepers who aren't us to understand is there is an element of trust there that goes both ways. We are trusting that that snake isn't going to attack us, and they're trusting that we're not going to force handling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was definitely like a mitigated risk thing that I started playing around with Aries. Something I use that doesn't show up on my videos as much because I usually dub them over with music is I actually use my voice a lot. So if I'm walking up to the enclosure and I see someone at the glass, I'll talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone ever saw me down here by myself, they'd think I was a raving lunatic. I talk to them a lot, right? And it makes a huge difference because they hear me. Like, I'll walk up to April's enclosure. She's one of my hot girls. She'll come out hot. But if I take the time to talk to her, she'll notice just from my voice. And then I place the hand on the glass. She'll come up and, like, if she's really excited, she'll boop the glass with her nose. But she figures out really quick, oh, it's just you. And then I can open it, and then she comes out on her own. So it's just these little steps that make a huge difference. It's not a whole lot of effort on my part. It's just something I've naturally always talked to animals since I was little because they were just cooler than most of the people I knew. So, yeah, it's just, I think that's something that people don't really think about it. When I feed them, I don't talk to them.
That's, you know what? I didn't even realize it, but I don't either.
Yeah.
I didn't even really think about that. I have a little shave and a haircut, 2 bits, little tap that I do when it's feeding time, and I don't really talk to them then. Yeah. And it wasn't even really. I didn't even realize that I just don't like. There's that shift there. There's a break.
That differentiation between feeding
yeah, and I'm not going to stick my hand in the enclosure when there's also a rat. You know, so the only time I stick my hand in the enclosure, it's palm out, just put it in.
Yeah,
and
I usually do with the retics if they're like food curious mode. There's no food set, but if I open the enclosure and they're still a little like, ooh, maybe. Once they've kind of realized it's me, to further ingrain that, I put my hand in palm down right above their head, like right above and behind their head. I know it's very counterintuitive, but they'll literally go to sniff my hand. They'll hit their head on my palm first, and that literally like kind of, oh, it's just you. So they're touching me first. That's always my goal. I want them to make contact with me first. That's been the quickest way to develop trust and confidence when they're interacting with me and we're working on voice-based stuff.
That is similar what we do with these guys. They definitely check out their food and make sure 100% it's not us. And when we've gotten a few of these already as adults, and look at that, sweetie.
He's climbing on my ring light right now, and so if you've noticed weird shadows, oh, yep, okay, you're stealing the show. We all know you're pretty.
Beautiful. And we'll notice that when we get the adults and we open their door, they do come out right away for food. But it happens super fast that they realize that their doors get open for all kinds of different reasons. A couple of things I tried to say, but my microphone was off again. First of all, we interact with our animals. The only time I ever interact with them during the day is during an ambassador session or something like this. But we wait till they're awake before we interact with them. And a lot of folks are afraid to interact with these animals at night because they're, so bitey. But at nighttime, that's when they're curious and they're ready to come out. They want to interact with us. And then another
Yeah.
thing, I tried to interject earlier, but my microphone was off, and I realized you guys weren't ignoring me. You just didn't hear me.
No, we didn't.
I know, is that we were talking about Lori's tree. And when we first started with these animals, we just had one little tiny baby. We'd never had a snake before. Our Emerald was our very first one. And I noticed that when I would open her door, she would try to get up onto the ceiling. Well, it was because there was a coat rack on the other side of the room. The light was over there, and it was putting a shadow of that coat rack onto the ceiling. And that was just a coat rack that I got at a garage sale. And it didn't even have anything on it. It just sat in that room. I just thought it was cool and I had it. And so I took the coat rack and moved it over to our enclosure. And that's how this whole Happy Basins jungle room started. Me wanting to go to the jungle because I put a video on Facebook of that little tiny red neonate emerald tree boa coming out onto that coat rack. And I got the comments, that's too stressful. You don't let babies roam around. And that's when I decided I'm going to go find out for myself. And
Yeah.
so they definitely, the babies like to slither up things and the adults do. So you don't need a tree. If you don't have a tree, you could get a coat rack at a garage sale and
Yeah.
they'll enjoy that too. And just set it right outside the enclosure.
It sounds like the baby chose to engage in that activity. And so many traditional keepers aren't giving their snakes choice. They say they don't like this, they don't like that. Well, how would you know that? Because you're not giving them any opportunities to engage in any of these things you say that they don't need or they don't like. If you have a choice-rich life for your animals, whether that's a snake or a dog or whatever species, give them a choice-rich life. Let them have agency to make their own decisions and to interact with their environment in a way that they choose. Then it's going to become clear what their preferences are, what they like and what they don't like.
Yeah.
Your little baby, why would she have climbed out there if it was stressful for her?
Yeah.
Freedom of choice is so big. Was it you, Lori, who said this, that all animals are designed to have agency, and when we restrict agency, that is an incredible form of stress. And I have been, so when I took my first class at West Liberty University, it was an animal behavior and training class, which is very much my weak point. Animal training, I'm awful at it because I'm horrifically inconsistent. I'm all over the place. And in martial arts as a fighter, it works as an advantage because it's hard to predict me what I'm going to do next, according to my husband. But, when working with animals, it's not so great. But something I learned or noted during this class was, it sounds like there's a lot of things about animal behavior that I'm tucking away in the back of my mind, because when I was taking this class, I was also pregnant with my first child. Don't recommend. Don't do that. And I was like, it sounds like training animals is a lot like dealing with young children. And I was right. It very much is. Now that I have 2 young children. And one of the things for surviving the toddler phase that I've picked up is freedom of choice. Give them as many choices as they can, because really young humans are very much animals, and very instinct, impulsive based. And it's when you give them freedom of choice, it decreases their stress. And you can see that immediately. So you're going to get fewer outbursts of expressions of high stress, so tantrums, or shutting down. I know it's so funny, but really it does. It really is relevant. I'm learning so much about animals from dealing with children, and vice versa, really.
And I think something important to add to this is, and I think a good segue to is, there's giving them the freedom of choice, and in order to understand what they're choosing, time in observation. And I feel like that observation and patience is something that we should spend more time teaching to people and talking about. And that was kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about is what you guys think is something that's missing that could, or something that should be spoken about more frequently, in regards to all of this stuff. And for me, definitely it is, and it's hard, patience.
Well,
And
Shira, this is right in your wheelhouse too, because patience and observation, just the art of sitting and watching,
mindfulness,
being quiet, mindfulness is
Yep.
so good for the human brain. So
Yep.
sitting and being quiet with a reptile, with a snake, is really good for us too in this world of instant gratification. Our phones teach us now,
Yep.
you know, and that makes it harder for us to engage with animals that are not now, that move at a much slower pace. And
Yeah.
we need to get on their level. And in doing so, we
all benefit
as well. We all benefit.
We
it is
all
so
benefit.
good for our brains to
And
just
it's hard.
get on an animal's level.
It's hard. I get it. I'm ADHD. Like, it's hard. It is the most difficult thing for me to just sit. But it's why I have that sign in my face all the time. Be mindful. Like, you don't need to move on. Just sit there and see what happens. And maybe nothing's going to happen. And that can be okay too. And I've had to learn, and I've learned much from watching many of you. I actually interact physically with my snakes much less than I used to. And that is because I am now asking first and waiting and just watching. And do I miss handling them more? Sometimes, yeah. But I've learned that getting that time of just sitting and what are they doing? How are they responding to my scent? How are they responding to this thing? Just observing and being patient brings down my anxiety levels, brings me into the moment. I feel like I get to know them better that way than just taking them out and holding them. Like I'm learning them. And I think that's really something that's not really talked about a lot in just, online or whatever, how to keep snakes and in herpetoculture.
You're maintaining a low stress level by allowing them to approach you, allowing them to touch you first. Because think about if some person walked up to you and hugged you or touched you, your stress level is immediately going to spike because you didn't ask for that. You didn't give them permission. What the heck are they doing? And people, one of their biggest challenges is allowing their snakes to come to them, allowing the snake the time to touch them first, investigate them first, interact with them first. And they're not looking at it from the snake's perception and how aversive it is to have somebody come into your habitat, your bedroom basically, and forcibly touch you, invade your personal space, and yank you out of bed. Like how horrific. And their stress level is immediately going to spike, and it's going to paint a picture of how badly that interaction could potentially go, either for you or the snake. Usually humans perceive that it's going well for them if they're not getting bitten. And meanwhile, the snake's probably terrified and just shutting down. But the other thing that can happen is if you get a snake with a more optimistic coping style, it's not going to just shut down. It's going to bite you. It's going to hiss at you. It's going to try to flee. It's going to evacuate on you. So one of the biggest challenges that I have to consult keepers on is just be patient. Snakes are on their own time. We don't know how time passes in their subjective consciousness. And you need to be patient. You need to let them come to you first, touch you first, make the decision of whether they want to interact with you or not. Because if you don't, it's going to elevate the stress level of that interaction. And one of you is not going to have a good experience, probably both of you.
The way I like to put it when I'm explaining it to people is think of reptiles as introverts. And regardless of how you self-identify, compared to them, you're an obnoxious extrovert. And so you have to treat them like, how do you make friends with an extreme introvert? You get in their space gradually, like you give them treats. you exist in the same sphere as them for a while. You might ask, you acknowledge them by name, ask them how they're doing, very polite, and you start at a distance and then you just gradually come in as they get familiar with you. And that's often how it is with reptiles. And some of them really just want to keep you at a distance. I have a student-plated lizard who you're familiar with her, Lori. We've talked about her. We finally got to the point where she recognizes I am the food person and will come up to the glass and maybe even take food from my hand. And for her, I've had her for years, and this is huge for her. But, meanwhile, on the other side of the spectrum, you have Mitski, my boa, who's down for just about anything. I open the enclosure to, Mist, and he's out like a shot. He's like, let's go, let's have fun, let's party. And there's different personalities, and you just have to adjust how you work with them accordingly. But at the end of the day, they're probably introverts, and you need to be careful with them, because if you get off on the wrong foot, it can take months to years actually to repair that relationship.
Yeah.
And speaking of Mitski, I'm going to get him out from wherever he's going.
Abby, oh my goodness, look at you.
He's not an introvert.
I have a green snake upstairs who is the same way. You open the door and she is right in your hands.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's not one who checks first to see if it's food. She has a little bit of a lizard brain. She's not mean. She just likes to taste test things.
Oh, that's funny.
But I did want to say our iguana always likes to sit in the window. And it was a huge mistake. We let her sit in the window too much last winter because we've only had her, this is our second year with her. And she did get a sunburn on her top of her head and her 3 spikes on her neck.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh, no.
So that is going great. That is healed up as soon as I realized what was happening. But what we did? We put in a cat door in the window and built her a screen thing outside. So now instead of sitting in the window, she goes in and out that little.
Oh, you turned off your mic again.
He turned off your mic.
She goes out that little doggy door. Did you guys hear the doggy door part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every morning she goes out there around 10 o'clock and she comes in every evening around sunset to get back. She's a free roam and she has her perches and her misting system and her heat panel on the ceiling. She has all the stuff and she knows where that spot is. But the observation part is what made me talk about that, because we observed what she wanted to do and then we just built on to what she already wanted. And to watch that iguana, if anybody saw my Facebook post, I even just posted her this morning. She just comes right down and walks right out that door like she's been doing it her whole life. And it's just incredible.
That's fantastic. I love
Observing
that.
what they're already doing and then building on their regular behaviors has been incredible for us to watch.
I think some of it's intuitive. Well, another thing, because I counsel a lot of people on managing their animals, and one of the other challenges, because they will hear us say how great enrichment is and enriching things are, but then every day can't be that. You have to learn how to balance enrichment and challenges with predictability, because you want routine and predictability in your daily care to keep management low stress. And then every now and then you want to give them an enriching, exciting experience. So you wouldn't go to an amusement park every day. I wouldn't ever go to an amusement park, but you know what I mean. You have to balance a nice, easygoing, predictable routine with some enriching experiences filtered in order to have a balanced life.
Yeah.
And so I just always want to emphasize that don't think because we're promoting enrichment that it's something you constantly should be doing.
Yeah, that was actually something I wanted to ask you guys to kind of share, like, as far as when you add new things or switch things up, what's, and I think I know the answer and it's per individual, but like, how often is that okay to do? And what you're saying is you don't want to do that every day. You don't want to move because if you move things around, then they never have a sense of their home, right?
Right.
But how often is it good to,
If
switch up a hide or something?
If I'm doing enclosure changes or enclosure enrichment and stuff within their living space, I don't ever do anything. I'll keep like most things the same and change one or two things. And then when they're used to those and they're bored with it because you see their behavior and that it's no longer exciting them, or then I'll change something else and leave those things the same. So it's a very, you never really want to change 100% of everything at once, because think about that in your own life, how stressful sudden change is. So if I abducted all of you and took you to a planet that was so alien to Earth, I dropped you down and you would just be terrified because you didn't know what to do. You had no gradual transition to adapting from how we live there to how things are there. And so we want to be gradual in changes we make. And if we take in an animal from a deprived environment and we think, oh my gosh, I'm going to give it this amazing habitat and a whole room and it's going to love it. You have to do that gradually or it's going to be in shock and it's going to have its stress level completely spike. You've got to make these changes gradual based on what has the animal experienced. So you want to make your challenge level appropriate for where the animal's at emotionally and cognitively. So an animal with high resilience, you can do high challenge levels with, but an animal with sort of that's highly sensitive, low resilience, you want to keep those challenge levels low and help it gradually build up.
And that's going to be very individual, I think.
Absolutely.
I've seen such a spectrum of response. My newest snake was 42 grams when I got him at the expo a month or so ago. And, I imagine he was a month and a half. And he went right into a 3x2 full of stuff. And that snake is the most, he's all choice-based too. He's my first exclusively choice-based snake. And he comes to me every single time. Not once has he refused. He explores every single inch of that space. He loves everything. I put new stuff in there. He's like, cool. Another thing, climbs all over it. And think about it. He was probably in a tiny rack tub, and then he was in a deli cup for 5 days.
Right.
At least for that show. He came from Arizona, travel. And he just, oh my God, the adaptation he made was just like, it's great.
As an individual, he may be just innately bold and he may have an innate optimistic coping style, which is the type of person who would sit in a room and think, how can I get out of here? What can I do in here? Let me go check this out. Versus a pessimistic coping style where you're going to sit in a room and think, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me? I'm not going to move. I'm just going to sit here and see what happens. Animals have those same spectrums. But also he had very little time previous to when you got, he was 4 weeks old, you said?
He was like 6 weeks old.
So imagine if he was 6 years living in Iraq and you brought him home versus a month and you bring him home. He doesn't barely know anything else.
Yeah, so he's like, ooh, what's this? This is cool. What's that? Whereas my boa, my VCI, had been in Iraq for 10 months.
Right.
And it was one of the kind that there was nothing. There was just a water bowl, no window, nothing. So the only time he had anything new was when the drawer was opening for food or being closed. And that is the snake that is the polar opposite, and that he will now explore,
but he will adapt.
He will take time.
Imagine those racks that are not opaque, do not have windows in them. The only time the snake sees the external environment is that few moments it's open, and then there's nothing again. So they've had no time to visually acclimate to anything in their environment at large. They've had no time to acclimate to the world outside because they can't see out. So it's a sudden shock when suddenly you're out. And how do we as humans expect them to behave when they've lived 23 hours, maybe 23 and a half hours out of every day with no visual stimulation. And suddenly now they see the 5 million things in a house or in an office or in your room. It's going to be shocking.
Mm-hmm.
It's so
Yeah.
important that they can see out. And
Mhm.
that's how they're just going to passively habituate to your home and your lifestyle or your office or your zoo or wherever you have them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something to, there's also the factor of adding enrichment. So someone might sell you a reptile and say, this reptile is super chill. Then you put them in an enclosure that has adequate equipment to properly energize the animal. And all of a sudden you find yourself with a very defensive, not friendly animal. And you go to the breeder and you're like, what the heck? And they're like, I have no idea. Like, there must be something wrong with what you're doing, because the animal that I was caring for didn't care. Was
Because
super
it
chill.
was
And
shut
now,
down and apathetic and knew that no matter what it did, its behavior didn't matter. And so it just learned helplessness. Now it understands I have agency. I can make choices. I can act on my environment and I can make decisions about what happens to me. And so now I'm going to take advantage of that.
yeah, right there, learned helplessness is so
Yeah.
huge. People will say, oh yeah, I just took my animal out every day until it just chilled out. That's learned helplessness right there. You're inflicting a trauma response on your animal for your own pleasure, so that it will hang out with you, which is really, really awful.
It is.
I have a really recent experience with doing the wrong thing. I got a, there was this about year-old, maybe 1.5-year-old blue-tongued skink that my husband fell in love with at a reptile expo. And 6 months later, saw her again at the same expo, and I was like, you know what? I love blue-tongued skinks. I've got a big enclosure just sitting around. Never have an empty enclosure in your reptile room. Terrible.
Right.
We'll bring her home. And I did. And I completely forgot, I was like, oh, I'm going to give you the best life. And I forgot that, what she was accustomed to was eating the same thing every day, was being in a relatively small, poorly lit, poorly enriched environment. And he's like, yeah, she's really chill. She's great. And handles her for us to see. And he's like, cool, bring her home. Immediately, we don't see her for ages. It was fall anyway, northern blue-tongued skink. She needed some time to for winter cooling, so we gave that to her. And she did start finally. It took her months to start eating, which was fine. She's still obese. We're working on it. But she finally started to eat, finally started to come out, explore the 12 square feet of space that she has. Burrow in the substrate, explore things, start knocking plants over. Always a good sign with a blue-tongued skink. But she's still and just recently, so it's been just shy of a year, and she's starting to not run away when I open her door to give her food. She'll watch, and maybe she won't even hiss at me. Wow, that's a lot of progress, because I shocked her by accident with all of this light, all of this stuff, all of this space. It changed her vision to suddenly have UV where she didn't have UV before. And I tried to, keep the food at least more or less consistent at first, but it was a really big change, and it shocked her. And so now I have to start from square one with, okay, we didn't get the animal that we thought we were getting because she was under energized and force handled. So now we have to take a step back and reestablish the relationship on her terms.
Right.
So
and you observed. Yeah. You watched, you observed, you gave her all the things, which I believe in doing that. I believe give them all the things. And if they don't respond to those things, if watch them, just make sure that you watch them. Personally, I'm not going to be like, well, you came from a deprived environment, so I'm going to give you a deprived environment for a while. I can't do that. Personally, I could do okay, you're not responding well to a large enclosure. I'm going to put a smaller one inside of it, and we'll let you, adjust slowly and come out as you want to. I wouldn't be able to use a rack. But you observed and you altered from that. And I think observation is something that is really important for people to talk about more often. And what you do should not be dependent on you, but on what your snake is telling you, what your reptile is telling you. And they do talk to us if we know how to listen.
Absolutely. Right? And you bring up a good point. I have a lot of really good success rehabilitating snakes that came from very deprived environments by doing that, okay, what were they in? Let me make that. Let me cut a hole in it. Let me now put it in a very enriched habitat. And that snake now can choose when it feels comfortable coming out of that deprived box or not. And doing it that way, letting them make the choice, letting them look out and decide when they're ready to come out and take advantage of all these opportunities has worked really well. And the other thing this is a good time to bring up is we need to modify and adapt our behavior based on our snake's behavior. Mm-hmm. What is our snake telling us? What is their body language saying? Okay, let me adapt. This snake, I need to give more challenges to. This snake, I can be more hands-on with. This one, I need to back off. I need to give it more time. Mm-hmm. I need to make changes less frequently. We have to completely adapt to our animal, whether it's a snake or a horse or a tiger. You've got to observe.
Or a toddler. Or a toddler.
A toddler. And you've got to adapt based on what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And which brings to the point that you've got to know how to read your animal's body language. Like what are the species specific ethograms for whatever species you have? Like how does the blue-tongued skink tell you that its stress level has gone up? How does it tell you that it isn't feeling well? What's it going to do when it's defensive versus how does a python behave that way? How does a horse behave that way? You have to know these things and be able to read that.
Abby, I think, is the one that can talk really well about this. Exactly.
No, I mean, what Lori and Mariah and you too, Shira, were talking about, I get a lot of messages from people saying, my snake's not like Aries. Like, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with my animal? I'm like, most of my snakes aren't like Aries either. Like, I observe what he's doing and I respond to it. He's not like this every single day. Like he's having a hormonal day, he acts very different and I respond to that, right?
Yeah.
So it's very much working people through, respond to the snake you have, not the snake you think you want.
Yeah, that's a great
Put that on CrossFit.
And I'll say I have two sulcata tortoises. And I've had them both for close to 2 years now. And one of them lived the first year of her life in that exact snake rack drawer, a tortoise, a sulcata tortoise, like you guys were talking about, just a drawer with newspaper and a water bowl. And of course, I hardly ever could even get close to her with her head still out. She would close the whole thing up. And now, like I said, I keep saying the videos on Facebook because that's my comfortable place to post. She comes right out. I scratch her head. She eats out of the spoon. She's just absolutely incredible. But that took a really long time. And it took me not trying, just leaving her alone. She had a big space, but she also had a cave where she could get deep in that cave and dig her little hole and do her stuff. And sometimes she didn't even come out to eat some days in the beginning. She just wanted to sit in there. So it took some time, but she's all in now.
Another thing to consider is, and Abby brought this up briefly, seasonal changes in your reptile's behavior. Sometimes your reptile is going to be very, like some seasons, they're going to be all like, yeah, let's get out, let's have fun. And other seasons, they're going to be like, please leave me alone for a long time. My ball python is a really great example of this. She does winter cooling hardcore. Like she has her active season during the summer when the reptile room is nice and warm, the days are long. She is very much up up for a lot more. But once the days start getting shorter, colder, she starts to really just, I almost never see her. She doesn't want to eat. Like, I never see her asking for food. And this goes on for months, where she's just in this hibernation mode of don't touch me. And so I don't even like really clean the enclosure. I just let her be. I do not disturb. And then when she starts coming out again, then we start doing things again. And I'm just waiting for the signs of the do not disturb sign on her door. And I miss her. It stinks that I have these animals. The Euromastics is very similar, where it just gone for months. Do not touchy. See you later. I'm off on vacation. And well, that's why you get more reptiles, right? So that you can stagger. So when one doesn't want to be messed with, you can mess with somebody else.
Well, I think we need to start wrapping this up because we've got some busy folks that need to get going. But
plus, this is a series, and we don't want to use up all of the topics right now.
Oh, we won't. Yeah, I think this is something that should happen more than once for sure, and we should all meet again and talk about more of this stuff. And I'm so grateful for you taking the time out of your schedules. If there's anything you want to add at the very end to just have as a takeaway or encouragement that you want to leave off with, go ahead and say it.
I'm going to leave off first because I have to meet with a student in 2 minutes. So I will say, be patient, balance predictability with enriching and stimulating experiences, and modify your behavior based on your snake's behavior. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lori.
Mariah?
What I'm going to say is, what I did say was I've made mistakes and I've paid for them. Certainly, they do set me back, but that should not be a reason. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are how we learn. And our reptiles are forgiving and resilient. They will come around eventually. However that relationship is going to look like. And you're growing together. So the only way that you can start enrichment is to start. Just get in there. Find something that you saw someone else do that looks interesting, that looks doable for you, and just get in there. And you know what? You're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. It is okay to make mistakes. You're going to learn a lot faster from a mistake made than from doing nothing right or doing nothing, which is far worse. So just get in there, start small with what you're comfortable with, and try to find joy in it. Like if you're not finding joy in it, if it's a chore, then the whole thing is moot. So just have fun with it. Just enjoy it. Just get in it. That's it.
Yeah. Abby, I know you have to leave. Want to say anything?
I think what I would end with is go into observing these animals with the expectation that they will teach you something new every single time. You just have to listen.
I love that.
And I would like to say, definitely start with small things and take great pleasure in watching the interaction the animal has with those things, even if it takes a long time. And just keep trying different things, but stick with something for a while to really make sure it's not just time that the animal needs. But definitely we will all get to watch them learn and their brains grow, because they are so much smarter than most of us realize.
That part.
Yep. Well, I think I can't add anything better except be mindful of snakes. So thank you all so much for being here, and we're going to do this again soon.
Thank you all. It's so fun to sit with you.